As a kid, I was scared of everything. Moving faces coming out of the wallpaper at night, tree branches slithering like snakes, folds of clothes turning into limp bodies, streetlights bending like heads, and the sinister grins of car hoods. And sounds. The creak of a door turned into a moan, the wind howled, and the floorboards sighed heavily. Ghosts and monsters haunted me at every turn. No need to say my childhood was a nervous wreck. Later, it turned out it wasn't just an overactive imagination. I was diagnosed with chronic hyperactive pareidolia. You know that thing where you see faces in cars, figures in trees? It's pareidolia, a defense mechanism so our ancient ancestors could spot a tiger in the jungle. But in my case, the reaction is like 16 times stronger than the average person. I see things everywhere, all the time. Of course I got treatment. By the time I was 12, I tried 6 different treatment plans, each with its own side effects. And they were all awful, if you're curious. Some meds made me super irritable, others made me hyper-focus on stuff, and one just made me sleep for days. By 18, I'd given up on finding a job. I barely managed to finish high school, let alone think about college. The meds kept me afloat, but along with relief, I got a whole bunch of tics. I dropped everything, jumped up in the middle of the night, stumbled unexpectedly, and almost fell. Total chaos. Mom had to cover the stairs and railings with anti-slip tape. Back then, I had regular meetings with the local employment service. Every Thursday. I hated it. That day was particularly bad, and Mom drove me to the office herself. The meds were just killing me. She dropped me off at the end of the street, and as I walked to the office door, I suddenly veered off and almost crashed into a brick wall. Then I knocked over a trash can on myself. But for the first time in years, they found me a potential employer. There was nothing special about her, just an older woman in a warm coat. She introduced herself as Alice and said she'd heard about me. Offered an internship and a solid one-time payment. I never figured out what the job was supposed to be, but she emphasized that secrecy was crucial. The only requirement stopped taking the meds. Surrounded by a thick cloud of foul trash smell, I accepted Alice's offer. I had no idea what to expect on my first day. I hadn't touched the meds in a week and barely slept. It was tough to see the world again as it had appeared to me in childhood. Faces hiding in shadows, patterns, foliage, practically everywhere. Murmurs and screams in every creak of the floorboards, the brakes of a subway car, or the rustle of paper. I could barely focus, and I was so nervous I kept jumping. Alice picked me up in a gray sedan. Earpiece in, eyes darting nervously to the GPS. I noticed she was nervously shaking her leg and biting her lips the whole ride. She barely looked at me. Finally, we arrived at a small yard, about 40 minutes from the highway. 2 big trailers and a rundown single-story house from the 60s. Cheap wooden panels and broken windows. 8 cars were parked in the yard. 4 sedans, 2 vans, a Jeep, and a bus. The yard was cordoned off with yellow tape, a tent with laptops and an antenna, spotlights, and half a dozen boxes under a blue tarp. The rest of the yard was filled with armed security personnel and paramedics, with first aid kits and stretchers at the ready. As soon as I got out of the car, half the people rushed toward me. They gave me an earpiece, gloves, a heart monitor, and put a white plastic bracelet on my left wrist. Alice just watched silently, squinting from the sweat stinging her eyes. "What are we looking for?" she asked. 3, 4, 1, I heard in my earpiece. "Caught early. Have you arrived? On site. Any blue?" "No blue. All clear." Finally, Alice turned to me. She put her hands on my shoulders and spoke slowly. "You're probably confused. I just need you to go inside and tell me what you see." Very carefully. "Why? What's in there?" "I don't know," she sighed. "Nobody does. But we think you'll see it." "Is it dangerous?" She gave a non-committal wave of her head. "Unknown. We're just starting to understand them." Then came a flurry of instructions. They made me sign a waiver, took photos from 6 angles, drew several blood samples. Then they swabbed my tongue, checked my eyes, and put on 2 pairs of protective glasses. Alice immediately took them off. "Don't cover your eyes," she muttered. "You need to see clearly." They asked me to approach the door while they ran diagnostics. Weapons check, systems check, readiness check. Like we were about to launch a rocket. My legs were visibly shaking. "I'll be with you the whole time," Alice's voice came through the earpiece. "You can leave any time, just describe what you see. I mean it, exactly what you see." The countdown began. When it reached 0, the spotlights lit up, turning the yard into a ghost town. Everyone held their breath. My entrance. I went inside. An ordinary single-story house. 3 rooms, a kitchen, a bathroom. Someone had lived here. Recent clothes were still piled on a chair. The lights were off, but the spotlights illuminated the place through the windows, making it feel like I was walking through a hospital waiting room. My heart pounded against my ribs. I didn't know what to expect, but they were going to pay me, and that money would be the push I needed. A nice sum with 4 zeros for just 1 day of work. But even that couldn't drown out the doubts as I stood there in that abandoned living room. "What do you see?" Alice asked. "Anything unusual?" "No, just furniture. A couch, an old bulky television, a carpet, nothing special." I walked around describing everything I saw. Minutes passed and Alice grew impatient. "This is all nonsense. I need you to tell me what you really see." Then I went into the bathroom. That familiar, awful heaviness coiled in the pit of my stomach. An indistinct sound pierced my ear. I looked in the mirror and saw something moving behind me. For a moment, a pair of icy blue eyes met mine. I screamed and turned around. "Thursday, there, something moved." In a panic, I backed away, caught the bathroom door with my fingertips and slammed it shut. Then I tripped, slipped, got tangled in the shower curtain, and tore it off the rod, falling into the tub, and I crushed a cockroach. I lay there, legs in the air, trying to remember how to breathe. My fingers tingled from the adrenaline rush. "What did you see?" Alice screamed. "What's there?" "Blue eyes. It has blue eyes." "Do you know where it went?" "Number probably still behind the door." Look again and get out." But first, she had to convince me to get out of the tub. She encouraged, urged, and reminded me that I had to get out anyway for a good 15 minutes. And when I finally gave in, my numb legs barely held me up. So I opened the door and saw nothing. The hallway was empty. I cautiously stepped out, looking around. Nothing. I stopped in the middle of the living room, feeling like a complete idiot. This was exactly why I took the meds. Paranoia, panic attacks, they probably all influenced me. I expected to find something here. They psyched me out, so no wonder I was seeing things. Then I noticed a painting on the wall that I hadn't seen before. Weird. It looked like one of those cheap paintings from a thrift store. It depicted 2 women walking across a bridge on a hot summer day. Just a completely ordinary painting, but not to me. I had checked every inch of this place when I came in. You know that phenomenon where you repeat a word over and over, and at some point it loses all meaning, turning into a mere sound? That's how I felt. The painting began to blur, disappearing, turning into a colorful stain. And there, in that mess of colors, I saw them again, the blue eyes. Small, bright spots in the water on either side of the bridge, and then a face, elusive, disappearing. At that moment, I realized I had definitely not seen this painting when I came in, and that it realized I could see it. I slowly backed away. "There's something in the painting," I whispered into the mic. "In the living room." "Are you sure? Absolutely sure?" "Yes, absolutely." "Get out." Turning the corner, I distinctly heard the floorboards creak behind me. The painting was out of sight, but I could clearly feel something moving. I was still backing away, out into the cold autumn air, and shuddered when someone's hands rested on my shoulders. Armed people pulled me back. Paramedics shone flashlights in my eyes. They bombarded me with questions. My name, my mother's maiden name, the name of our president. They laid me on a stretcher, and at that moment, the cleanup crew stormed the house with cattle prods, nets, and a box. I cried and laughed at the same time, feeling the nervous tension release. I didn't even notice Alice sitting next to me. They gave me water and a pill, and I took it all without question. "Good job," Alice said. "It's over. It's all over." "What was that? What was in there?" "Something only the chosen can see." That's how I first worked with Alice. Over the next few years, they called me once or twice a month and paid me enough that I could move out of my parents' place into my own apartment. Alice visited me every week, and I had to undergo regular checkups, but for the most part, I was left to myself. Gradually, I learned more about the company I worked for. Payments came from Falcon Biotech, a subsidiary of Falcon Pharmaceuticals. My position was called a supplier, which is basically what they called me. Over time, Alice told me what to look for and how to act, but that first mission was a test. They gave me a chance to prove myself. I had no idea what I was looking for, but my peculiarity and ability to find patterns really helped. I learned more about the procedures. For example, they always did a blue check. This meant surveying the surrounding area for signs of infection. Usually, it was flowers, often blue, but not always. Sometimes tulips, but mostly sunflowers. And once, they just found a pile of teeth sticking out of a wall. Basically, a blue check is looking for something out of place, incongruous, or downright strange. When something like that was found, the mission was immediately aborted, and the entire area was destroyed with a directed explosion. If it was still inhabited, they set up tents and used flamethrowers. I remember once, a week before Christmas, 6 men with flamethrowers had to burn down a greenhouse. I'll never forget how the flames danced in their visors. They only saw the flames, but I saw bodies engulfed in fire. I heard screams in the shattering glass. And in the charred remains of melted plastic, I saw faces contorted in pain, staring at me with hollow, hate-filled eyes. I worked on 33 cases over 2.5 years. Each time I entered someplace and looked for something out of place, hiding in plain sight, and I had no idea what I was dealing with. Sometimes, out of the corner of my eye, I see something dart by, or I see a pair of blue eyes staring from the other end of the room. Each time, I just reported what I saw and left. A chair, a fridge, a suspicious window. Heck, once it was even a music box. The last time we approached a house, it was a rainy autumn evening, and by the time we arrived, the area was already cordoned off. On the ground lay a "for sale" sign, knocked over by a recklessly parked Jeep. They put me in a protective suit, took blood, packed it up, the usual. Just another job. I was still nervous, but with each time, I handled it better. "Any blue?" Alice asked. "No blue," one of the guards replied. "We're observing one tango." "Are you sure?" Alice squinted. "The first report mentioned 6. Secondary readings indicate 1. Possible escapees." "Notify the Galapagos," Alice finally sighed. "Send him in." She turned to me, smiling and patting my shoulder. "Go in and come out. You'll be fine." "I'll be fine," I repeated. "Yeah." Everything went as usual. Countdowns, spotlights, and the game was on. I felt like I was stepping onto a stage. Stopping for a second in the doorway, I looked at my dark shadow stretching forward and felt like a hunter. Only I was the one to be feared in this house. And whatever was left here was already trying to hide respectfully. "The floor's uneven," I noted. "Strange place." "Are you sure?" "Yes, definitely." I pulled myself together and started going through the rooms, one by one. I kept waiting for that feeling. I saw what was on the surface and what was hidden beneath. Blue eyes, figures becoming clearer. I just needed to relax and wait for that feeling to overwhelm me. I was almost calm, but I still felt that primal urge just waiting for me to panic. Nothing happened. I checked the kitchen, the living room, the bedroom, nothing. Just a strangely uneven floor, empty rooms, and the echo of my footsteps. An empty guest room with a single window. I imagined grim faces in the tree bark outside. 20 minutes later, I still had nothing. I reported to Alice, but she insisted they were still getting readings from inside the house. Something was in there with me, but I saw nothing. I went through denial, fear, anger again and again. What was I missing? Despairing, I just sat on the floor in the middle of the living room. I rubbed my eyes, sighed, and tried to relax. Alice the third don't feel anything. Are you sure? She didn't answer. Alice? Yeah, she absently threw out. Yeah, no, we're good. Just wait a minute. We're good? What do you mean we're good? Silence again. I paced inside for another 10 minutes before approaching the window facing the front yard. The spotlight shone right in my eyes. Alice? I'm coming out. It's empty. I opened the door and was met by 24 faces staring at me, as if they were surprised by my appearance, but something was off. Yeah, something was off. They all stared with strange expressions, some indifferent, some grinning ear to ear. One of the paramedics stared at me with his jaw dropped in horror, as if they didn't know what they were feeling or how to express it. That familiar heaviness coiled in my stomach. My eyes glazed over, as if looking at one of those stereo pictures, at something hiding a pattern. This was the feeling I had been waiting for inside the house, but I found it outside. Behind them all, Alice emerged. She stepped out from behind a Jeep, grinning widely. Behind the outline of her face, eyes glowed with a cold blue. One by one, their eyes lit up blue, and within moments, I saw figures in the grass at their feet, resembling human shapes. Headless, mutilated bodies. Imposters, doppelgangers, mimics, nightmarish creatures that had lured us into a trap. One by one, the smiles on their faces began to spread. Rows of incredibly sharp teeth, long writhing tongues. Their fingers and necks grew longer. They shed their masks and fearlessly stared me down. Not a word was spoken aloud, but it was as if the wind itself screamed at me to run. And I ran. I slammed the door shut and rushed into the house. Faces emerged from the walls, doorknobs grew fingers and grabbed at my clothes. My own distorted face danced in mirrors and windows, grinning with a ripped-off lower jaw. I was afraid to blink. With each heartbeat, fear coursed through my veins, forcing me to keep my eyes open. There were more doors than before, more windows. Suddenly, there was a skylight and 4 refrigerators in the kitchen. The entire master bedroom was covered in countless paintings depicting brutal, bloody scenes. They had already gotten inside, surrounding me. And now, all I could do was frantically try to remember what was real and what wasn't. Bursting into the guest room, I remembered there was only one window. Now there were 2. All I could do was rely on luck. Try to guess. I grabbed the window frame, literally seeing teeth sink into my palms. Hot tongues licked my wrists. Wide grins claimed their prey. But it was just my imagination. I tumbled out the window and fled into the woods. All night, I kept going. My chest ached from suppressed screams. Without the meds, everything in the darkness seemed to reach for me, trying to eat, grab, kill. In the creaking of branches, I heard laughter. In the howling wind, screams. I had been running for hours when my foot got stuck between rocks. I fell, twisting my ankle, and saw them catching up to me, their fingers digging into my flesh. Writhing on the ground, I begged them to let me go, please, please. And a few seconds later, I realized I had just scratched myself on the underbrush. No one was there. It was over. I cried, trying to ignore the distorted face spreading across the full moon above. Eventually, I made it home. No messages on voicemail or email. All my work numbers were disconnected. There was no way to contact them, no trace of the company that hired me. Falcon Biotech exists only on paper. There's no office, no contact information, no owners, just a front. I haven't heard from Alice since. I think those I worked for just assumed I was dead.